Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me in another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today I have a very special guest, the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr.
Yes.
Dan Trinidad with me with DealerFox. What's going on, Dan? How you doing?
Jason, how are you? Doing well. I love the introduction. Best one I've had so far. I'm now famous.
Yes,
I like it. I might repost this on my social.
Can you put that? Is that kind of like your next post? Like, I'm famous, Dan Trinidad.
I'm famous. I'm going to quote Jason. Strategy with Jason. Love it.
Hey, Dan, man, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. We got some super cool topics that we are going to get into, but I'd like to kick off every conversation with a little origin story, and maybe because it's more for me than I think anybody else, I'm always super fascinated how people get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry. So Dan, I'm curious, how did you get started in this crazy little world?
Well, like I think a lot of people, like most people, my father is a 50-year car vet, right? I think he's retired now, but he was mainly in the box, for some of the younger people here, that's finance department. And when I was 16 years old, he brought me in as a porter. 17 years old, I was very ambitious. I wanted to sell cars. A little short story here. It was at a Honda dealer. It was a big Honda dealer out here in Illinois. And they told me I was too young to sell cars. And I was, challenging them. I no longer wanted to wash cars. It was wintertime. I didn't want to be outside. And they said, if you take that up outside, you sell them a car, you have a job. So I walk onto the lot. And this guy's looking at a station wagon. I can't forget the story. It's an old station wagon. It's an older gentleman. And I walk in and I approach him, and he literally says, "Get the fuck away from me." That was my introduction to sales. And I looked at him dead in the eye and I said, "Listen, sir, this is the first time I've ever spoken to someone. If you can please just allow me to talk to you, stand with you for a few minutes. I'm really trying to get a job. You don't have to purchase anything. Can I just service you? Can I get you information, get you some coffee?" And to make a long story short, that actually led to the sale. He felt real comfortable with the information I was giving him. It was a used car. It was like a $4,000 purchase at the time, and sold the car, got the job. From there, I went on to do a little bit backup F&I and leasing. I took a class at GMAC, and since my father was in the box, I went to back him up and learned a lot what he did. And then I think at right around 21, 22, I realized a lot of people spend a lot of time in these dealerships. They're here 60, 70, 75 hours a week, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So then my life, took a turn, for a different cycle. And that's when I really got interested in technology.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the baptism by fire, because I feel like that's kind of how we all kind of got started, right? Like, I mean, there was always that one customer, right? And it always seems to happen that first few days. In your case, the very first one you talk to, that's just like, F you, get away from me. But it kind of sets the stage, though. It's like, you get to know that unfortunately, this is what their perception is, not necessarily the truth, but their perception. But once you're in, and you get a little taste for that, and you overcome those objections. Boy, does this business get addicted quickly, eh?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy doing the job. I think I was pretty good at it, and I did enjoy it for the time. Outside of the hours and the requirements to work 2 bust outs, back in the day, 2 9-to-9s, and on a Saturday, I think the hours was pretty much the staple that shifted me in another direction.
That's awesome. Well, hey, we got some cool topics we're going to jam about today. Our first one, which is one of my favorites, is why dealers need to embrace data. Data or data? Data.
We'll call it data for the day. And if we end up with data, we'll call it both. I love this topic.
I would love to get your thoughts, man.
Okay.
Look, it's so important. We hear this all the time. A dealership is sitting on a gold mine of data. Sure. But do dealerships really know what that means? And do they really know how to embrace it? I'd love to kind of get your thoughts.
I appreciate that. And I think this is one of the challenges that we have. I could only speak from experience. And anytime we get brought on board, DealerFox is identified as a data company. That's just one of the things that we do. And we like to tell them is, we're a decision partner for independent and franchise dealers. Data is just the process and formula that we utilize to help dealers make better decisions. Mm-hmm. So when they first engage us and they want to know what that first best step is, we always tell them that, you have to embrace data and embrace change. And the reason that's so important, because when you bring data to the table and you're trying to make adjustments. You're trying to get from point A to point B, right? Better decisions, better results.
Yep.
It requires internal change within the dealership, whether it's, software or operations or, just the way they handle their processes. And if they don't embrace that and they're not excited about it and the leadership is not leading the charge, it's very difficult to to achieve the total result that we're looking for, because the other people, the rest of the team in the dealership becomes resistant. You got the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. And if they embrace data, they could literally go from point A to point B. They can go anywhere. I have a client I'm speaking with now. They want to go from 250 cars a month to 400 cars a month. We did a historical data analysis, and we're looking at everything. And we don't just measure marketing. You're never going to make a full transformation just measuring marketing data. You need to measure what we call the 4 pillars of the sales process, and that's marketing, inventory, processes, and personnel. Once we get that marketing mix just right and it's running effectively and efficiently, we have to start establishing benchmarks and look further down the line. And that's where that buy-in comes in. When they embrace and they buy in to this data and they're willing to get out of their comfort zone, challenge themselves, and try to achieve better results, that's when biggest change happens. Other than that, you're going to have incremental improvements on marketing and minimal successes, because marketing changes day to day. It has to be constantly managed. The market changes day to day. So I just think it's absolutely pivotal. And the first point, if we had an avatar client, it would be a dealership that wants to make better decisions to achieve better results utilizing data.
No, I'm with you. And I find like with a lot of the dealerships that I have the opportunity to consult with or talk to is, there's still a lot of managers out there that I would say they're data indifferent, meaning like they don't really care. Like, I know what the data says or the data, but my gut says this. And we're still operating and managing like that, right? And then I find, and this is the one that always kind of throws me off guard, and I'm curious if you see it too, but managers and owners that are actually fearful of the data, like they're afraid of, they're afraid of it, and Absolutely. I've never quite understand that. Have you seen this too? And how do you think we can overcome that?
We do see it. We see it quite often, and we always when we start working with a dealer, we call them 2 types of different clients, right, or partners. You have a management level team that has an absolute want and need to achieve results and get better, and they're willing to take any measure to get there. And if data is part of that process and they're not doing something according to spec, they're willing to change. And it makes a lot of sense. You think, most or everyone would see it the same way. But we run into quite often, I think it's 50-50. You'll have some management team that feels responsible for the performance that they already invested in. And they're a little bit hesitant to expose their weaknesses because they want ownership to have 100% buy-in in their belief system and what they feel. And unfortunately, that churn rate within that dealership is always high. We've seen that client, and we went there and we almost, had a partnership, and this person didn't want to be fully transparent. They didn't want to expose, the data and make decisions off of it. And then, 6 months, a year later, there's a new GM. 6 months or a year later, there's a new GM. And it's really a big challenge. And the way we try to overcome it is we always let, our management team know that we want to work with is, you have the opportunity to be one of the most prepared general managers in your auto group. Every time you go to a monthly meeting or you're asking for a larger budget, we're not here to cut your budget. We're here to make your budget efficient. If you would like to go in there with numbers and data to support your objectives, we'll provide that for you. You no longer have to operate in the dark. Nobody has all the answers, not us. We make adjustments so we can get incremental improvements. Some of them are home runs, some of them take time, some of them don't work. But as long as you can be 100% confident with the decisions that you make based off the data that you were presented, the best decision today with the information in front of you, that's all anyone could ask for. And if I can, really send a message to, some of the managers out there that are hesitant to show what they have behind the scenes is, don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Data is your friend. Data will help you improve and get better, and it's going to increase your value within the dealership and probably longevity. Right? It was a long sentence. I don't know where it was like a run on.
It's all good. It's all good. But no, Dan, I think you got some great points. But I love the fact that you bring up, operations, because I find that a lot of the reasons why we don't get that data embracement is because there's such a division in the departments that are dealing with the data, right? You have data coming from your operations, you have data coming from your marketing, all right? You have vendors that are producing data, and there's just these islands, and they're all kind of separated. And speaking of islands, actually, that's where I want to go with this. This is my segue, okay? Is, marketing versus operations, why does it always kind of seem like there's this tension or this distance between them? And what do you think we can do about that?
I think that they go hand in hand. So first and foremost, it's all related. There's a relationship between marketing and inventory and processes and personnel, and everyone has to be on the same page in order to achieve a full result. I think what we can do about it is if we can speak to operations and marketing and let one another know the impact that their relationship has on performance and on the dealer's investment. They spend so much money at the top of the funnel on marketing, and they're trying to generate and drive traffic into the store. And they're so hesitant to have that communication and relationship and change, with operations and vice versa. I think they have to be empathetic to one another and really understand each other's, pain points and investment, both time and money. Maybe that's.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you. In fact, look, you've had the opportunity to be in a lot of dealerships. I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of dealerships, and the dealerships that I think utilize their data the best are the ones where the marketing and the operations department are working really close side by side with each other. I find too often you have the marketing department upstairs, then you got your operations team, downstairs, your sales team, your service parts, everything, and like the amount of communications might as well just be like sending Morse code across multiple islands and just saying, hey, what do you want to do this month?
You know what, Jason, I guess our whole business model is wrapped around tying the whole knot together, right?
Yes.
So we have there's a shameless plug. We have our own platform, but that platform, we report to the entire team because the entire team has a report on the platform. We're reporting on marketing, on processes and personnel, software, inventory, vendors, and we have multiple meetings with all involved, including vendors. So I think we tie it in. I haven't had meetings in the past few years without marketing and operations in the same room, so to speak, and going over performance reviews.
That's actually a good point, because I'm always surprised to find out how often there are separate meetings. Like, I'll be talking to a general manager. He's like, well, I got my marketing meeting, and then just after that, I got to meet with the operations team. Sure. I was like, what? Why aren't they? But no, I'm with you. And I think you see the same thing I do. The closer those departments are working side by side, the faster they are able to embrace the data and then use it to better everything.
Sure.
You know what? I think I could easily do a whole podcast with you just on data. Yeah. But I know we got a few other topics, and I want to throw this one in there because it's one that I get a giggle out of, right? And, that's SEO. Okay. Look.
Love it.
As a dealer principal, I can't tell you how many vendors wanted to sell me SEO, first page Google listings, guaranteed no matter what. And it's, that was years ago. I'm amazed that it's like 2022, right around the corner, and we are still getting hit as an industry. Like dealers are still getting hit with what we call this fake SEO, the snake oil. So for everyone out there watching and listening, Dan, I'd love to kind of get your take on the difference between real SEO and how we can avoid the pitfalls of fake SEO.
Fantastic. Well, I got a little short, funny story for you. I started working on SEO, somewhat 20 years ago, probably.
You're OG, man.
I wasn't very good at it. You had a bunch of other, companies. I had a small little business, and I wanted to work with local businesses and improve their search results. And I didn't know all what they call black hat tactics. I didn't know how to leverage, software so you can get different performance rankings and whatnot, and rank higher on your SRP pages. So all I ever did was, what's real SEO to me was answer a user's search intent, right? Answer their question, provide them with the information that they're looking for. So, we have a basic rules. We're going to say we have 3 or 4 answers that we want to question. we have 3 or 4 questions we want to answer with this, blog post, or with this social post, or, with this page with this content page. And after we produce this page, we want to see, did we answer that question? After that, that's where, your specialties come into place. And do you know how to optimize the page and then leverage the page for distribution so it can, gain some organic traffic? And as the years went on, and as the algorithm started to improve, my pages started ranking higher and ranking higher and ranking higher. And it had nothing to do with trying to study or be a specialist in SEO. I was just trying to provide the same exact experience that I did offline, right? I wanted to give the end user or the consumer a great experience. I wanted to answer their questions. I wanted to make it as simple as possible to get to their solution. And I wanted to provide them and deliver them a great service. And I think when you look at SEO the same way, and I talk to, whether it's our vendor partners or these dealers, and our approach to SEO is very similar. Now you have technical SEO, just for some people out there, you have to make sure you have no errors, the 401 redirects, and you want to clean up, your broken links and whatnot. That's technical SEO. You have your on-site SEO, where a lot of the vendors are selling what we can call snake oil. They're producing blog pages and content that have there's no entry pages. People are not looking for that information. Yep. They don't meet the criteria, the keywords density, the inbound outbound links, the cadence and the H1 H2 headers. There's a lot of things that they don't do. And what's funny is, I recently had a company that's, highly touted in this industry, and they charge a premium for SEO. And we're looking at reports, and I told them, I appreciate your reports, but we're looking for, what is our value? What have we generated? What have we done? And they're just continuously focusing on, reports. Well, I have a reporting company, so I can kind of figure that out. And they forgot to submit the pages to, Google Webmaster, to Google Search Console. Obviously in SEO, a little tidbit you can understand is, once you create content, Google will find it itself within a 6-month period, or you can just submit it, to the Search Console and give it an opportunity to be found in 72 hours, right? And you could start ranking a little faster, and there doesn't have to be, so much latency between the production of your content and when it's seen. Now, once Google starts recognizing it, if they're not converting, on your page and people aren't interested, and you're not going to rank. Yep. And so that's one of them. Another huge area, which is really interesting, is there's so many different call to actions, especially in the automotive industry, on these pages, and they're all outsourced. They're wireframed in. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. One of the huge values in SEO is conversion. Anyone who takes action, they're going to fill out a form or request, information, or schedule a test drive. All those are hard conversions. And that's what we call Google Juice. That's going to boost your SEO value. And if you're bringing in third-party plugins all across the board, you're not going to optimize your site. You're not going to get that value. So there's a whole lot of ways you can approach SEO. But I think what you want to do is, you want to have your technical SEO sound. You want to have your on-site SEO sound and your off-site SEO sound. And that's whether it's your Google My Business, your social media pages, or other external pages and links.
You know what's going through my head right now?
What's that?
I'm getting such a giggle out of Google Juice. Is that? Can I buy that somewhere?
You know what? People I like to speak in terms that,
but no, it totally makes sense.
Understand?
It 100% makes sense. I mean, but I'm with you. This is very much so a field of dream scenario. Build it and they will come. Right? There's not a magic button. This isn't a diet pill or a get rich quick scenario, right? This is being strategic about identifying the questions that your customers have and answering that, but then either yourself or working with a partner to execute on content rich pages that answers those questions, but will rank accordingly to best practices, for Google and so on. So no, dude, I'm with you, but I love the Google Juice, by the way. I think that's Google what I want to call this video. Can I just put the title? I'm just going to put title here.
Google Juice. I love it. It'll get a lot of clicks. People will watch it, and we start off with this segment, right?
Dude, I think that's awesome. But I'm with you. And I think if anybody out there that's watching and listening right now, and you guys are looking at your organic efforts, if you're not, you need to be. Okay, you need to be looking at your organic efforts, and you need to be asking yourself, is my website answering those questions? I think that's a great first step, don't you think?
Absolutely. And also, when you sit with the marketing team or the leadership team, and they're talking about, they want to expand their market, and they want to, generate more business. They want to sell more cars. Well, your opportunity is in organic traffic. If you want to expand your market, you have to expand your reach, right? And how do you expand your reach? If you continue to target bottom of the funnel traffic, there's only so many, there's only so much of an audience you're going to target. They've already decided which car is best. Is it right for me? Can I afford it? Now they're on, where should I go? And, that's where the majority of the investment's being spent. SEO is an inexpensive way to target the top of the funnel. Yes. Now, if you expand your reach, you also have to expand your processes. You have to be able to communicate with these online shoppers at an early stage without alienating them. You can't be, come into the dealer, we'll give you a good price. So it goes hand in hand. But I think a lot of what we tell all of our dealer partners is you have to look at this almost like a real estate agent and how they build a pipeline. Early on, they'll talk to someone who's a year out, year and a half out for purchasing a home. They build a pipeline, so they're trying to avoid having these downtimes. And, within the automotive industry, it should be looked at very similar. You don't always have to wait and focus on where should I go. You have to expand your market and take them away from the OEM pages or Car and Drive or Edmunds, and answer some of these questions on your site so they can engage your dealership early in the funnel. And by the time they get to where should I go, you've already taken them off the market. When I tell you the deep blue sea is there's not a lot of competition there. It's very low competition, and it's ripe for the taking. And that's the only way you're going to expand your market in order to sell more vehicles or get more people interested in your brand, in your franchise, in your OEM.
100%. But the key to that, and you talked about it, is that you actually have to want to think or look past a 30-day cycle.
Sure.
Right. I think this is actually a perfect segue into our next topic, because, too often in our marketing efforts, our operations efforts, our SEO efforts, we are so insanely focused on bottom funnel. If they don't want to buy a car in the next 30 days, screw it. I don't want to invest time in that, but I think the more progressive dealers or smarter dealers do understand that, that life cycle, that purchasing cycle has changed quite a bit. In fact, I'd love to get your take, because how timely is this right now, especially with inventory shortages and inventory levels seem to be the hottest topic. I mean, I can't go into a meeting or a room or an event where one of the first three questions are asked. So what are you seeing where you are? So I'm it's crazy,
it's
right?
Definitely that's
it's
a
crazy.
Question.
So I'm curious to get your take on how inventory levels are affecting the purchasing cycle.
Okay. What we've seen, and we had some data supported, the purchasing cycle extended, right? Before we were looking at 120 days out when people were starting to tippy-toe around and start looking for their vehicle. And now we've seen that's extended a couple more months out. They understand that there's an inventory shortage, especially with new vehicles, and they need to start getting into the market a little earlier, identifying the vehicle their vehicle of interest, and they're starting to snoop around. Also, prices are higher, so they're trying to see if the market's going to shift and it's going to be a little more advantageous for them. Mm-hmm. So now you have a real opportunity to get some brand awareness and get them the information and content they want, and you could probably start increasing your pre-orders, which most OEMs is the direction they kind of want to go in. They don't want to give so much allocation anymore and have cars sit on the dealership's lot when they could have pre-orders taking place. And I think Ford is taking the baton on that and really trying to add into their process. So that's one of them. And what we also found was 60 years and older, their purchase cycle is actually shrinking. They're saying it's taking so long to get a car. You know what I mean? I don't know if this is, one of my last purchases, but I want to get in the market a little quicker and I'm ready to purchase a vehicle. So it's a little dynamic there. That's for new inventory. And in terms of used car inventory, I mean, these what was I going to say? I had a little brain fart there, Jason. In terms of used car inventory, their margins on these vehicles, they're probably the best they've seen in a long time. 100%. And a lot of the strategies that they're looking at is we don't have to market or advertise at all. We're not worried about our process. If we have the vehicle, they're going to pay for it because they can't get it anywhere else. And I think dealers that really get it are starting to prepare for when this time changes. When it starts to come back, and they have to be, what are you looking at? What data sets are you looking at to trigger you to start having you make a change and start implementing change so you can adjust to that market, or you're going to find yourself way back, of the line when it comes to where should I go?
Well, and I think to get prepared, and I'm with you, I think most progressive dealerships out there do look way past the 30-day mark, and they do look at their operations, their marketing, their website, their SEO. and they look at it from a 6-month perspective or a year perspective, right? And I think that's actually maybe one of the advantages that this inventory shortage has created is that it is forcing you as an operator to look forward, plan more in advance. Like, I can ask a manager how many units they're getting in next week, and they literally know to the T how many units. Sure. Before all of this, it was never even a conversation, right? So, they're planning things. I got 33 units coming at the end of the month. This is what I need to do. All right, the 17th of next month, I got another 42, and so on and so forth. So I actually don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. But you kind of brought something up. We're talking about partners, we're talking about vendors. And I think that's a great segue into our next topic, because I think it's super important moving forward is to really truly define what I call the vendor stew.
Sure.
Okay. And you guys do a lot of work in this place, and that's why I want to pick your brain on it. Okay. Is for the dealers out there that are looking forward. And what I mean, if anybody watching or listening, what I mean by the vendor stew is, look, you got a mix of everything in there. You got your lead management, you got your marketing, you got your CRM, you got your website widget, you have your website. There's just all this everything in there, and the stew's supposed to taste good, not only to you but to your customer. But I would love to get your perspective on how we can better that stew, moving forward.
Absolutely. So I guess one of our strengths is we don't have any blind spots. We're able to look and work with all the vendors, whether it's, the software provider, the marketing person, social media, whatever, SEO vendor, whatever the vendor is, we work hand in hand with them because we always establish a benchmark and so we can improve performance. What we found is the best way to get the most out of your vendor stew is we set a criteria. Vendors have to be transparent with us, with their dashboards, with the information that we're aggregating, gathering, and so that's the first step. You got to be transparent. Mm-hmm. The next step is you have to be willing to make adjustments according to data. If you want to work on our team, you have to be part of a team, part of a solution. A lot of vendors that are a little hiding, they rather be right instead of get better. They don't tend to be as transparent or share the information. And when we bring an opportunity to the table where there's opportunity to improve performance and make adjustments, we get a lot of pushback. So we say you have to be transparent, you have to be willing, and then you have to be able. You have to have the ability in the team to execute, to make these adjustments. So those are the 3 key points that we look for when we work with vendors and the vendors do, and it's usually determined by the rep, who the rep is. I've worked with great software, bad rep. Couldn't find me a good rep, had to switch vendors. I worked with so-so software and with a great rep and kept them around for years until they switched the vendor and then everything was bad. But I think having a great rep who's available, whose turnaround time is good, and they're a good communicator, both for our client and for their internal team, really makes all the difference when we're talking about vendor and vendor stew. So if you can be transparent, willing, and able, and you're available and you're a good rep and you know how to communicate, I think that's really the secret to success in putting your vendor mix together. You're going to have some vendors that just can't do the job. They don't meet the ability to do the job. They might be transparent and willing, but they don't have the technology or the team to support their objectives. Unfortunately, that does happen time to time. But what we found is most vendors have good enough software and good enough intention with a good enough rep, and we're able to work hand in hand with one another. But what I realize is a lot of leadership and dealerships, they've made the investment. They'd rather have this vendor mix work than start canceling out or bringing something else in. It's always harder to restart something than to just improve what's already there. So, our first goal is always to communicate, shake the trees a little bit, get them adjusted. And even if we don't get the performance or there's pushback, we still try to break down that wall so we can get some victories under our belt. And they could see, wow, these guys aren't that bad. Our retention is going to be a little bit higher, a little bit longer. They do like us. So it takes a little bit of time to get there. But I think, just be part of a team.
Oh, well, that's what it is, right? And it's all about being just a part of the team. Vendors and dealers working side by side. It's that full transparency, but I think transparency goes both ways. And so this is where I for anybody watching and listening, this is, my secret sauce. God, we're talking all kinds of food stuff. Maybe we're all hungry today. We got Google Juice, we got vendor stew. Now I'm talking secret sauce. What is this stuff, man? I got to go eat lunch after this. But no, I mean, I've found that my secret sauce in the past was being fully transparent with my vendors as far as what my goal and objectives were, right? And then them being fully transparent with me as far as how they're able to assist me in those goals and objectives.
Sure.
And we're not always going to win. In fact, so transparent that we want to be able to both as dealer and vendor embrace our failures, learn from it together as a partner, and continue to move forward. I think if you can get to that place with your vendor stew, some amazing things are going to happen. Hey, Dan, absolutely. I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time today, but we've covered some seriously cool topics, and I still think there's a lot to chew on. See, look at this, man. I'm hungry.
Lot to chew on. I get it. I'm hungry too.
Secret sauce, Google juice, we got all the good stuff.
Yes.
Hey, but before I let you go, though, for everybody that's watching and listening right now and, are thinking and chewing on what we've talked about.
Sure.
But I'd love
down to Chicago. We got some great restaurants.
I'm coming, man. I'm coming. Right. What's the best way to connect with you so they can continue some of these conversations?
Sure. You can go right to dealerfox.com. We have a few different call to action, so you can get in our calendar and we can have a conversation. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dan Trinidad. You can call DealerFox number 844-369-9800. Real simple. It goes in a row.
Awesome, man. Hey, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
You too. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.